tell, then you see the road. I'm out to my soul into the sides whenever the smoke clear out of my face and my picture perfect. Do it. All of that green together, the truth, yeah. Tell you the
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to Cypherfics. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the fourth part of, What If BEN10 Meets Powerpuff Girls? Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of man of cartoons on fanfiction.net. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. Sometime later Ben as Astrodactyl, Bunny and the Red Huntress were flying right above the town. After Valerie got over the shock, she was really happy to see her friend again. She had so many questions but decided that everyone should hear about it. So now they were heading to Fenton Works, a place Ben hasn't seen in a long time. It's really great you're here, Ben. Valerie said excitedly, even though I didn't get to see all your aliens, I think the one I saw you in is a bit of a copycat to Legos. You guys have that in this world? Astrodactyl questioned and chuckled. Valerie giggled a bit and turned to Bunny, you're certainly not a ghost. I so want to know how you got your powers. It's simple. I was created with it. Bunny simply replied. Created? What does that mean? Astrodactyl decided to explain, well she's kind of like Danny, except she isn't a clone. I'll explain everything else when we get to Fenton Works. Oh look we're here. True to his words, they could see the building with a weird UFO thingy from up close. To avoid looks from people, the trio landed at the backyard and changed back to their respective forms except Bunny who didn't have a form to change back from. They then proceeded to the back door, which Valerie opened and let the others in. The kitchen was the first place they got in. Wow, how long has it been since I was here? Ben asked with a questioned look. 6 months. Valerie said and walked away. Huh, Ben whispered, I guess time really goes fast. Then again I don't know how long I've been in different worlds. Ben was right. Due to time travel and cross-dimensional travel it was hard to keep track of time. Different universes had a different month or week. Like for example Ben left Danny Phantom universe at the time of March, but yet arrived in the Teen Titans universe at mid-May. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles universe was a week after he left the previous universe. So with all that travel Ben wasn't sure how long he has been gone in a particular universe. Bunny just stood by the door and crossed her arms over her chest. The idea of staying in Danny's home was revolting to her. She made sure to have a cool and calm face so as not to cause any suspicion from Ben and anyone close to him. Suddenly the ground shook violently as an explosion came from below. That wasn't me. Bunny became alarmed, what was that? Oh that. Valerie said calmly, that's just the usual explosion Mr. Fenton causes. Dad, can you please keep it down there? A familiar female voice shouted. The voice sounded closer. When the person came in, she became wide-eyed and dropped the books she held. Ben. The brown-haired boy snickered and held his arms apart, relax I'm no ghost. Haha. Before anyone knew it, the girl ran to him and embraced him in a tight hug. It wasn't so bad for Ben. In fact he smiled warmly and hugged her back. Bunny looked away with jealousy in her eyes, she really held herself back. Ben knew the girl as Jazz Fenton. The last time he was there, the red-haired and him had a close bond. She even tried helping him with some emotions he went through. It can be said they had a brotherly and sisterly bond. Jazz didn't waste a second. She turned to the door and shouted, Mom, Dad, come see who's here. Footsteps were suddenly heard until they were standing at the door. Maddie and Jack were both so surprised at who they saw. Fortunately they got over the shock and ran to the brown-haired boy. Jazz had to shift from Ben to avoid getting pushed. That allowed Ben open for both adults to embrace him in a hug. Ben felt so glad to see them. Suddenly Jack lifted Ben off his feet. Ben was at first shocked, but he began to scream in excitement as Jack moved him around the air. Bunny saw all the joy and happiness happen and smiled. She couldn't hate the happiness that was going on. Even though she is jealous of Danny, she won't let a happy moment pass her by. Danny. What? Where? Bunny became alarmed and looked around. When Bunny looked in front of her, she found Jack looking at her up close. She winced a bit and took a step back. Is there something on me? Huh, your voice is different, Danny. Jack said. Valerie and everyone else felt like hitting their own face. Obviously Bunny had no resemblance to Danny, but Jack somehow thought she was. It was Maddie that decided to tell Jack. That isn't Danny, honey. In fact, who is she? Maddie asked as she turned to Ben for answers. Ben went to Bunny's side and gestured to her. This is Bunny Utonium. I met her and her sisters in another universe. Okawae. Jack said, uneasy. He stood up straight and gave Ben an accusing look. You found another girlfriend, young man? No. Ben shouted. Yes. Bunny shouted. What? Everyone including Ben shouted. Bunny realized what she said and faked a giggle. Oh, sorry, I was thinking of pancakes. Okay, I buy that. Jack shrugged. Yeah, me too. Maddie agreed. Now let me go call Danny, Tucker and Sam. They'll be so happy and surprised. That was the last she said before she walked away. Jack went to Ben and patted him on the back. I'm so sorry about that. Anyway, let's head over to the living room so you can tell us all about your big adventures and why Danny isn't here with you. He then turned to Bunny, and you. While we wait for everyone, I'm gonna tell you all about ghosts and interesting facts about ghosts. I'm gonna wish my ears were gone, aren't I? Bunny plainly said. Most likely. The cheerful Jack grabbed the Powerpuff Girl and held her over his shoulder before running off to the living room. That left Valerie, Jazz and Ben by themselves in the kitchen. Both girls stood at each of Ben's side and held his shoulder. A strange feeling overcame the Omnitrix bearer, like he knew he was in trouble. I hope she really isn't your girlfriend. Jazz whispered into the boy's right ear. 'Cause if she is, you'll be in a heap of trouble with us. Valerie whispered into his left ear. Sure. Okay then. Ben said with a wincing face. Good. Jazz smiled brightly. Now that's settled, let's go. Both girls let go of Ben's shoulder and walked away like nothing happened. Ben let out a relief sigh and shrugged his shoulder. He really didn't want to think of what happened just a few seconds ago. A few minutes later everyone was sit on different couches. Maddie arrived soon after. Apparently Danny and his friends were playing a new version of the game Doom that they didn't hear any of the commotion in the kitchen or the basement. It didn't take long until Danny's voice could be heard from the stairs. I'm coming, Mom. Then Sam and Tucker's voices followed. Do you know about the special guests she's talking about? Sam asked. No. But I sure hope it isn't the guys in white again. Tucker said right after. Ben stood at the center of the living room and waited. When the three teens arrived into the room, they became so surprised that they froze in place. Ben chuckled at their expression, but almost regretted doing that. Sam came at him and hit her fist. At his elbow. Ow, what was that for? That was for laughing. And this, Sam hit him again, is because I missed you. Ben winced as he rubbed his shoulder. You sure have a weird way of showing it. Dude, you're back. Tucker exclaimed as he approached the other teen. Of course not, Tucker. It's not like he isn't right in front of us. Sam said sarcastically. Tucker scowled at her. You really like to make me look dumb, don't you? I don't. You just make it too easy. Everyone laughed at the comeback. Tucker looked like he was about to come up with a comeback when he sighed and bowed his head down in defeat. Danny shook his head as he laughed a bit on his own before walking to the boy hero. The entire room became quiet as all eyes were on the two heroes. Danny smirked and held up his hand, which Ben accepted. "Good to have you back, Ben," Danny said. "You know it, Danny." Ben smiled back. An unknown guise in white space station was invaded. Sometime after the battle involving Ben, Timmy and Danny, the government funded the guys in white to ensure maximum ghost attack. That worked greatly because the organization was able to stop ghost attacks all over the world, but that isn't why they had a space station. At this point the sounds of gunshots ceased. The only thing to be heard was the alarm going off for the past minutes. Footsteps could be picked up as they approached a huge door which slid open. Once it did, they came into a large room shaped in a circle. At the middle of the circle was a floating force field with a Fenton thermos. The invaders turned out to be Vlad, Kyber, Madame Rogue and Nefarious. Another alien joined them as it shot right from the ground in the form of Slamworm, the predator of Armadillo. Two conductor electronic antennas held the floating force field at its side. Slamworm shot a web ball at the two things, which disabled the force field. The Fenton thermos fell due to the gravity in the space station. However, it instead flew to Nefarious's hand. He uncapped it and pressed the release button. A black and white wisp flew out of the thermos until it got into its real form. Now standing before the heroes was Dan Phantom. "Ha ha ha. Guess who's back?" However, when he looked at his allies, he got shot at the chest by Nefarious. He hit the wall hard and coughed. He winced as he held his stomach. "What the he dash? You owed me that for that surprise back when I was in this universe." And this, as Nefarious said it, he held his hand at Dan and a pink ring appeared around his waist. It lifted him up in the air. Due to the power of the ring, Dan found himself unable to shoot ecto-energy at Nefarious or do anything else to escape. Nefarious continued, "Is for failing me, Dan. I gave you everything and because of you Ben 10 has them. Now that he's in this universe I'm sure he is giving the Ring of Rage and the Ring of Fire to Danny Phantom for safekeeping and hiding it. However, I do have one use for you. Unfortunately you won't like it. Let go of me, Nefarious." Dan yelled angrily, "I will kill you when I get out of this." "Actually you won't. Kyber, do it." The alien hunter held a flute and blew into it. A small dart flew and hit Dan's neck. Whatever is inside sank into Dan's ghostly veins until it was all gone. The dart fell off Dan right after. Dan snarled, "What did you do, Nefarious?" "You see, while I was here, I was able to ally myself with some ghosts, as you much know. I was able to get their DNA sample and use genetic splitting to make that and more. Unfortunately Ben 10 destroyed my ship along with the large batch of it. Fortunately I was able to save what is now in your veins." "You didn't answer my question. What did you do?" "Haha, you fail to notice, do you? When that serum kicks in, your mind will die and leave room for me to take over. With my powers and the genetic powers of this world's powerful ghosts, I'll be unbeatable. Even Ben 10 won't stand in my way. I will use that power and destroy him once and for all." Dan lost all means of being furious. He wasn't scared or worried about himself, that wasn't something he never did. Instead he glared sharply at the evil villain and said, "Usually I don't support heroes, but I do now. I hope the Tennyson boy beats you, Nefarious. Unfortunately for you, that's something you won't happen." Suddenly Dan let out a loud scream. His whole body hurt so bad that he began to move about. Suddenly every part of his body became to be mutated. His body size grew so much that he broke right out of the pink ring around him. He hit the ground and kept growing that he stood about 20 foot. A long tail formed and most of his ghosts shredded. His flaming white hair poof away as spikes shot out in its place. His red eyes became brighter and his teeth fangs grew so much that they were outside of his mouth. Lastly his legs, hands and necks were now covered in dragon scales. Now standing in Dan's place was a numb mindless beast. The only recognizable thing about him was the part of his suit that wasn't shredded. It covered his chest and private part fortunately. Ha 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 ha. Nefarious laughed, excellent, I step forward to destroying the boy. Now no one will stand in the wall of Nefarious. Right after he said that his entire body became covered in pink aura. The mindless creature that was once Dan also became covered in a pink aura. Both of them flew up into the air and joined into one in midair. Nefarious let out another round of evil laughter as he is now in the ultimate beast form. The sun was coming out of horizon. The first to see it all was the teen hero, BEN10. The teen hero wasn't a fan of waking up early, but strangely he was up. Maybe because he was still surprised that he was back in Danny's universe. A lot had happened yesterday, which was now bringing Ben to think about it. Flashback. Time had passed since Ben told them everything that happened. He told them about his adventures, the Teen Titans, the Justice League, the Ninja Turtles, and finally about his adventure with the Powerpuff Girls. That brought up the topic about Bunny and cleared up any thought about her being his new girlfriend, much to the Powerpuff's sadness. Nighttime soon arrived and everyone went to their respective places. Danny gave Sam a kiss before she and Tucker went home with Valerie following. Eventually it was time to go to bed, but this time with two guests. Bunny was to sleep with Jazz while Ben slept with Danny. The two boys got into the room, while Bunny went to Jazz's room. Huh, old times. Ben said with a smile as he held sleeping back. You know it. Danny exclaimed. The black-haired boy jumped on his bed and sighed, it's been so long. I'm glad to have you back. Me too. Ben sighed. He got into the sleeping bag and smiled. At the meantime Jazz was looking through her closet. While she did that, she spoke, I know this is gonna be hard since you're a dimension away from home, but I can assure you that everything will be fine. Now. Jazz got out a colorful purple sleeping bag and turned to Bunny, let's get you in, hey, what are you doing? Bunny was comfortably snuggled under Jazz's bed covers. She shifted her body a bit for comfort and smiled with a sigh, just snuggling on this comfy bed. But it's Mike, Jazz tried to finish but heard snoring from the brown-haired. She frowned, bed. Present time. At the moment no one was awake. The breeze just cooled through Ben's hair. He was done thinking, but then another one came up. His mouth opened as he let out a sad sigh. It hasn't been long since he thought so much about Danny. The Phantom Girl was in Juniper Lee's universe and doing the good fight. He knew he shouldn't be worried about her, but he couldn't help it. Hopefully she and the girls succeeded. A sudden ding caught the teen's attention. He became alerted right away and turned his back, only to smile widely at who he saw. Hi, Benjo, said a familiar male voice. It's Ben, you moron, yelled an irritated female voice. Ben chuckled, nice seeing you guys again, and you too, Timmy. Timmy Turner smiled and ran to him, you know it, dude. I can't believe it has been months. Both boys laughed hysterically as they shook hands and did a little handshake only they knew. The 13-year-old Timmy shifted away from Ben a bit, allowing the brown-haired to be tackled to the ground by a yellow dog. Ben was shocked but then laughed hysterically as he told the dog to get off. Sparky, get off him, Timmy shouted. The dog, Sparky, got off and floated a few feet in the air, oh sorry. As a dog I just get happy and wanna lick you all the time. Yeah. Cosmo suddenly appeared and licked Ben, wow, you taste like fun, adventure, and a school sleeper. Guys, that's enough. Timmy said, that's Sparky by the way. You didn't get to meet him last time because he was on a spa getaway for a few months. Anyway, I got a big wish to celebrate this special return. So wands up. I wish we were all surfing at a wave of meteors. You got it, Timmy, Cosmo exclaimed. The two fairies and their fairy baby held up their wands and rattled and poofed everyone away in a pink dust cloud. When they reappeared, Ben screamed as he saw a meteor coming his way. Timmy got to him and pushed him out of the way, unfortunately Cosmo got in there. Hey, look, a meteor is heading towards me. Wait, what? The meteor came right at the green-haired fairy and hit him. Timmy let go of Ben, revealing himself to be in a blue bulky spacesuit. He laughed right at Ben and smirked, "Dude, you got to be careful. This is a minefield literally." "Say what?" Ben's eyes grew wide. An explosion came from the far right and Cosmo sounding weak. "I'm okay. I just lost a liver or kidney." Ben blinked with a shocked expression. His eyes went on Timmy before a grin then came over his face. "Timmy, you got an awesome mind in there." "Awesome mind?" Wanda said as she appeared next to them. "You mean dangerous, right?" "Nope, just pure awesome." Sparky suddenly came up as he was on a surfboard. He waved to the others and smiled. "Look, I'm surfing in space. Wait, I just remembered something. I don't know how to surf." The magical dog hit a meteor. It exploded, but not after the dog says, "I'm okay. I just lost a hey, I lost nothing." Woohoo! Timmy and Ben erupted into a moment of laughter. It was kind of fun watching both fairies do stupid things. It was Timmy that was the first to stop laughing as he turned back to Ben. "Okay, that was pretty hilarious. So are you in for a little race?" Ben stopped laughing and smirked. "That depends, how little is this race?" "Oh, nothing really, except we get to surf to Saturn. Whoever gets there wins." "You're on. Bring it." Timmy clicked his feet together and a surfboard formed right under his feet. With that he surfs right off, dodging so many meteors. Ben joined him as he did the same and soon set off to catch up to the 13-year-old teen and win. Meanwhile the Fentons and Bunny were having dinner. "Hey, where's Ben?" Bunny asked. Bunny stood at the entrance of the kitchen wide awake. The brown-haired yawns a bit as she took a sit next to Danny who was eating breakfast. Jazz came in soon and yawned as well. "Crud, I haven't been in a sleeping bag in a while." "You were in a sleeping bag? Why?" Danny asked as he faced his sister. Jazz wanted to say something, but closed her mouth. Bunny was present, and right now she didn't want to seem so rude. So she shook her head and took a sit at the other side of her brother. "Never mind." Danny simply shrugged and got up. He took his bag from the counter and turned back. "I'm sure Ben is fine. With all that he has gone through, I'm surprised he's still alive." "Well, I got to go, Sam will be here soon. Bye." Everyone else besides Bunny responded back to the halfa and continued as Maddie brought more breakfast for Jazz and Bunny. The red-hair didn't have to bother with school anymore since she graduated last year. As for Bunny, she was new to the universe so she didn't need school. Another day in Casper High was just another normal day. No ghost attack came up in the last few class periods. It was both a relief and bit worrying for Danny. There should have been at least been the box ghost, but yet no sign of him either. Now it was 5th PRD, meaning Lancer's class. The bald teacher was talking on about English that most of his students were trying to stay awake. Teen Phantom was the only ones not sleeping. Rather they were talking among each other. Sam sat at the right side of Danny while Tucker sat behind his best friend. "Guys, I'm telling you I have a bad feeling," Danny said. His face never changed from the worried look. Sam shook her head and sighed. "Danny, maybe you're right. Or just overthinking this because of the absence of ghosts." Tucker added his own. "Yeah, for once I'm with Tucker on this." "Okay, that's weird," Danny said. Before any conversation could go on, Mr. Lancer interrupted. "Daniel, even though you're a world-known hero, it does not permit you to interrupt my class." Danny got up. "I'm sorry, Mr. Lancer. Sam, Tucker and I were just talking about." Danny would have continued if not that his ghost sense. Everyone had their eyes on the teenage boy and the blue wisp of air coming out of his mouth. Tucker sprung up to his feet and exclaimed, "Ah yeah, it's ghost-busting time." "Ghost-busting time?" Sam looked at the teen with a raised eyebrow. "Have you and Jazz been having a class on bad jokes?" Danny waved his hand at them. He closed his mouth and wrapped his arms around his mouth as his body shivered. Gee goo guys, I remember that be a bad fey feeling I had. Ma may w1 want to run. You heard him. Everybody out now. Sam shouted at the top of her voice. Mr. Lancer held up his hand to speak up. However, everyone sprinted to the door, almost stampeding on the teacher. When they all got out, the teacher's clothes had cuts and a bit shredded off. He was so dizzy from the rush that he just stumbled out of the room. Suddenly the ceiling flew off, revealing green swirling skies. Danny's ghost sense went off again as he looked up with his friends. It turned out that a huge being with a very monstrous appearance stood in the air. Team Phantom became wide-eyed and gasped as the ghost stomped on the ground right in front of them. Just its green and pink aura made Danny to shiver even more than he should. The teens saw Danny's insignia on its chest. It only meant that the creature is Dan. Dan! They all shouted. The creature laughed, not really, kids. Dan's mind has been occupied by me. Oh, and who might that be? Tucker asked. Sam shot a glare at him, but the African-American boy didn't notice it. The creature simply laughed as he glanced at Danny mainly. I never thought I'll get to meet you, Fenton, but then again I have caused you so much trouble the last time I was here with Tennyson. Danny looked closely at Nefarious. There was just something about what he said that made Danny to think. Then a thought came, which made him to snarl a bit. You're Nefarious, aren't you? Sam and Tucker gasped, no way. Nefarious only laughed hysterically. Upon looking at his form, they saw how dangerous it is. Danny has faced bigger and stronger foes, but there was something about him that made him grunge a bit. Nefarious's new body was a 12-foot ghost with green dragon scales and green giant fingers in each of his two hands. Dan's clothing was mostly shredded except for being on the chest and to his knees. Danny immediately got in front of his friend and girlfriend. He now stood face to face with the powerful being in front of him. His own body had a blue aura and actually should be making him feel cold. However, Danny was strong enough to go into action. You're not going to get Ben on my watch. I still got a lot of payback to give you for what you did to Danny and everyone. As Danny said that, he smirked and punched his open hand. I'm going, ghost. Suddenly a white ring formed around his waist and departed. His clothes were changed instantly to a black and white jumpsuit with his noticeable D insignia on his chest. Immediately Danny flew right at Nefarious with his fist glowing green. He came at Nefarious fast and punched him right at the chest. But to his surprise nothing happened. He tried a kick and then a roundhouse kick, but yet nothing happened. His attention was immediately brought away by Nefarious laughing hysterically. The giant just flung his finger at the Phantom, sending him to crash at the class board. Danny! Sam and Tucker shouted. His friends quickly ran to his side, just as Nefarious approached them. He held up his right hand above him, causing a green ecto ball to form. He chuckled as he did it. Tell me, Daniel, do you bleed? I can assure this will. Before Nefarious could reach to full blast, a few purple beams hit him at his back. Strange enough, it didn't hurt him, but instead got him to look above him. The Red Huntress suddenly came in view as she came rushing from the air. Nefarious shook his head and turned fully to her. I hate interruptions. But I do like a good guinea pig. Just as he said that, he threw the blast at her. However, Danny won't let that happen as he flew after Red Huntress. The female didn't notice Danny coming, but she did notice the giant ecto ball coming. Quickly she flew off in an attempt to escape it. She went so high up and did different moves to get rid of it. Unfortunately, all were futile. It just came closer. Danny suddenly appeared right in front of her and held her in his arms. The Red Huntress was surprised. She didn't fight it though, but her glider flew right off her feet and went off. She and Danny were intangible, allowing the blast to go right through them and hit the glider instead. It exploded into pieces, with the impact of the blast being the size of a wide government compound. Danny allowed both him and Valerie to be tangible again before taking them to the sidewalks. She took a few breaths and looked at the hero. "Thanks, Danny. Who is that guy? I've never seen him before." Valerie said. "That's Nefarious. I'll keep him occupied, just keep out of it." When Danny finished saying that, he took off and made his way back to school. While the hero was coming, things weren't looking so good for Sam and Tucker. The techno-geek ran for the alarm. It was a system that was installed to evacuate everyone out of the school in case of a major ghost invasion. Even though the situation didn't have a ghost invasion, it seems like it was best to do so. However, his attempt didn't go unnoticed by Nefarious. He launched his huge hand at the geek, just as he was about to get to the alarm. But Sam got in the way and got grabbed instead. That froze Tucker in his track as he screamed, "Sam!" The goth girl tried struggling out his grip, but to no avail. Nefarious drew her close to his face and let out a monstrous growl. Sam held back in breath and said, "Sheesh, for an evil villain you sure can't brush your teeth." "You think so, huh?" Nefarious laughed a bit. Suddenly red wisps flew out his nose. He turned back and saw Danny coming very fast. Nefarious turned his whole body at the fast-approaching hero and held Sam up. Daniel, you wouldn't want to hurt Samantha, do you?" Danny quickly came to a stop, even though it was hard. Nefarious shot out his long snake tongue at the hero and knocked him right on the ground. Then he chuckled out loud and spoke up, My, isn't this a surprising turn of event? I believe Samantha is your girlfriend, correct?" Well, his huge hand squeezes onto Sam. Suddenly Sam screamed out for Danny as a green aura overcame her. Nefarious finished, "Not anymore." Right before Danny and Tucker, Sam's whole life force was drained out, causing her body to be turned to dust. Tucker and Danny screamed out in shock as Sam was gone right in front of their eyes. Nefarious laughed at their expressions. "I came for BEN10, but I could use the workout." You monster." Danny finally snapped. The Phantom's entire body was covered in a fiery green aura. He got onto his feet with a furious look so cruel that it made Tucker shakes in fear. The African American sprung to the ghost alarm and set it on. Then he ran out of the classroom, knowing it was going to be a lot dangerous than he could handle. Sounds of students panicking could be heard all throughout the school. Nefarious smirked as he heard it all, even when he turned to Danny. He was taken aback when he saw the teen's ghostly aura increasing so much. The teen clutched his fist and rushed at Nefarious so fast that he didn't see it coming. Suddenly he was shot right out of the school and heading to the skies. Danny suddenly appeared right behind him. He energized his open hand so much that when Nefarious was coming, he hit him with it and sent a powerful ecto-blast that sent him crashing on the back of the school. Anything close to the impact was thrown out of place, as the center was now a giant crater. Danny let out a furious battle cry and stomps right on Nefarious. The impact of it was so much that it shook anything close by. But that didn't matter to the angered Danny Phantom as he hit Nefarious with serious punches. You took her away. Now I'll make you pay for that." Just as he finished saying that, the young Phantom made his hand intangible and sent it into Nefarious's chest. He grabbed onto whatever that could be considered his heart and froze it instantly, but he didn't stop there. He put so much power into it that Nefarious's whole body was frozen instantly. Then he let go of him and flew off into the air. Danny came to a stop, way above Nefarious. Even though he was far up, he could still see Nefarious's frozen body. The hero didn't waste a second as he created a huge ecto-ball between his hands and threw it down. It came in so fast that when it impacted on the ground, it sent a wave of ecto-energy that destroyed the ground and shook any place close by. A few moments passed by. Danny was breathing hardly. He flew down to the former giant hole and came to the sight of a huge dust cloud. His mind was already down and now he felt like crying. But before he could, he heard laughter and became frozen in shock. Suddenly a long snake tongue wrapped around his neck and threw him on the ground. Danny let out a grunt as he did so and managed to get up. The laughter went on until the dust cloud was cleared away. Now Nefarious stood on the ground with a wicked grin on his face. Danny gritted his teeth in anger as his face became even more furious. Nefarious could see that, but it didn't bother him. "Boy, you can't hurt me. I contain all the power of every ghost you encountered. And not only that, but I also have the power of Dan Phantom. The way I killed your girlfriend was by draining her life force with a twisted power that not even Spectra knew of." Just as he said that, he held his hand up. Danny felt the ground shake and quickly took off from the ground. However, his entire body got covered by vines that shot out of the ground. "I have the power of undergrowth." As Nefarious said that, Danny froze the vines and broke out. He flew at Nefarious, whom only opened his mouth and let out an air blast. It hit Danny hard and sent him crashing on the ground. The power of Vortex. Like the previous power display wasn't enough, Nefarious grew very large. Danny groaned and became wide-eyed as he saw the villain towering over him. The power of Queen Dora. Immediately Nefarious let out a burst of fire. It covered the hero so much and burned everything close to him. Once it stopped, Danny stood on the ground with his hands up as he had put up an ecto-shield dome over him. The hero put it down and looked up to face Nefarious, but unfortunately found nothing. Confused, he looked to his left and got punched at the face by a fist. Nefarious came into view in his normal huge size. He approached the fallen hero and stomps his foot on the hero. Then he laughed triumphantly. Danny groaned as he tried to struggle out, but to no avail. "Quiet trying, boy. This is the beginning of the end for everything you cared about. After that, I'll find Tennyson and ripped him apart limb from limb. Stay away from him." A furious purple blur came at him and hit him. The force was so much that it sent him flying away. Not only that, but that purple blur turned out to be Bunny, who was still holding on to Nefarious and throwing serious blows at his face. "You will not hurt my Ben." Just as she said that, she threw a final blow at his face and let go of him. That led him to crashing, throwing the surface of the streets and in the process dragging a line of direct. People passing by and those in their cars quickly ran for their lives, screaming about ghosts attacking. At the meantime, Danny was getting to his feet. He felt so weak and was about to fall if not that someone caught him. He let out a sigh of relief as he saw who it was. "Oh, thank goodness it's you." The person turned out to be Valerie in her normal form. She just smiled at him as a response. Suddenly the Fenton van came right at that instant and skidded to a stop. The door opened, allowing Maddie, Jazz and Jack run out to help out the beaten hero. "My gosh, Danny!" Maddie and Jazz screamed. The two females got to him before Jack and held each of his arms over their shoulders. Valerie allowed them by moving back a bit, but stayed to watch. Jack got in front of them and looked at his boy. To his horror, and everyone else, Danny looked really beaten. His hair was trashy, his clothes had holes and scratches, and he looked really tired. Jack got so angry that he lifted up a huge ecto gun and shouted, "I'll make that ghost pay for this. No ecto-some hurts my son and gets away with it." Valerie exchanged eye contact with Danny and looked away. She knew Danny wanted her and his family away, but she knew that he would need help. So instead of looking at him, she looked to the ground and spoke, "I called them sorry, Danny. But at least Bunny is handling him." "It's okay, Valerie," Danny said with a frown. Despite his mom and sister holding him, the ghost hero phased through them and stood right in front of all of them. Then he spoke up, "Have you guys seen Ben? I'll need his help to take down this guy. He's just too powerful." "No, there's no sign of him." Maddie frowned. Danny sighed and pinched his nose a bit. The tension was getting to him. Not only was Ben absent, but the very foe that Ben swore to defeat was out and wreaking havoc. He knew Nefarious haven't gotten to Ben yet, the villain said it himself that he'll deal with him. So the question now is, where the heck is Ben? Danny removed the thought of the other hero. Whether Ben was around or not, he still got a world to save. So instead he spoke up again, "Alright, I know you guys are worried about me. But I got to go fight that maniac with everything I got." "But, Danny Dash," Jazz tried to say. "No, Jazz, I got to. Don't worry, I know what to do now. Dad, I think it's time we let out the Ectoskeleton 6.0. Really?" Jack grew a childish grin. Once his son nodded, he jumped in joy. "Ah yeah. My sweet baby is finally gonna be used." Before Danny said anything, Maddie came to him and held his shoulder softly. Then she looked into his eyes and said, "Okay, I believe you got this covered. I have faith in you. Just please be careful out there." "I know, Mum. I'll try." As Maddie let go of her son, the boy looked at Valerie. "It's okay, Valerie. You did what you think was right. And now I need you to do something for me." Valerie looked back at him with a confused look. "And what would that be?" "Find Tucker, his parents, and your dad and make sure everyone gets out. I have a feeling things are gonna get worse from here on out." Valerie nodded, but with a fearful look. The rest of the family had the same look as well, but none of them could say what they feared. Danny knew it and could see it. He didn't say anything about it. Right now was the time to act. Hopefully he'll come out of it alive. A lot could be said that has happened to New Amity Park. Ever since the major battle with Timmy, Ben and Danny against Dan, the town had grown to be a city. But it now seems that it will end. A huge impact sound rocked through the city. It turned out that Bunny was hit so hard that when she hit the ground her body dragged through the ground. Nefarious came at her, walking casually. "You think destroying Tennyson will be the first? One by one I will take everyone you cared about when I go back to your universe. You're a monster," Bunny said as she suddenly hovered a few feet in the air, "and I'm gonna stop you." Immediately, she shot at Nefarious. The villain did the same. Both fighters came at each other and made an impact so strong that it ruptured the ground and shook several buildings. Bunny was sent hurtling into an office building and skidded on its floor. She finally came to a stop, when Nefarious arrived inside. The villain snickered as his eyes shined green before shooting let-out beams from his eyes. His laser beams cut right through the ceiling and floors, causing everything to collapse. He almost hit Bunny, if not that she hovered into the air in a flying position. Nefarious jumped out of the building, leaving Bunny inside. The Powerpuff flew as fast as she could, but the rush of doing so threw her out of balance. She crashed so hard that she bounced right off the ground, then on some cars before crashing through several walls below a parking building. The building that was collapsing could be viewed falling onto another building. People were either hiding behind their cars or staying far away as possible. Bunny finally emerged from the building. She looked around for Nefarious and then noticed him behind a gas truck. The villain pushed it at her with just his foot, causing it to skid towards Bunny. The Powerpuff Girl jumped over it and did a flip, which caused it to inside hit the building and explode. She landed on the ground and was just about to act when suddenly Nefarious came and punched her at the side. The impact was great, but it only made Bunny to fall to the ground. Nefarious raised his foot up and tried to stomp down on her, but the girl rolled out of the way. She got on her feet in a flash and sent a strong punch at his stomach. It knocked the wind right out of his lungs and gave her the chance to strike at his waist side. However, it didn't affect the villain. Instead, he just kicked her at the stomach. Bunny was moved a few feet back. Her feet only dragged through the ground. She got up straight, but Nefarious came and sent both his hands down on her. Bunny saw it coming and held her elbow in defense. Nefarious's fists came down on her, but her elbow was strong enough to hold it up. It was a strain to hold it up as Nefarious put more force. An idea sparked into Bunny's mind that exact moment. So as she was holding out, she then flew backwards. That caught Nefarious off guard and caused him to hit the ground instead. Before he could straighten up his body, Bunny came at him and gave an uppercut to his face. She was just about to send the final blow behind his head when suddenly a car fell from the top of the collapsing building and hit her. The girl was able to push it off her, but then Nefarious got up and backhanded her. The girl was sent flying a few feet back before she landed right on her feet. "Do you really think he will love you?" Nefarious said with a grin as he approached Bunny. "I've seen the way he cares about Danielle Fenton. I've watched him far before you came around. He loves her no matter what, not an oblivious BRT that doesn't know when to give up." "Shut up!" Bunny cried out in anger. Immediately Bunny came at him, but Nefarious grabbed her head and threw her to the ground. He then held her up and kicked her in the face. Bunny hit the ground and her body rolled until she came to a stop. She was strong enough to get up and looked forward. However, as she did, she found 3 Nefarious duplicates heading towards her. Already angered by Nefarious's statement, Bunny ran at them in blind rage. Her eyes glowed bloody red before she shot a laser beam that cut right through the first duplicate and the second one behind it. The third duplicate jumped right into the air with his fist down at Bunny. He came down fast, but Bunny backflipped, causing the duplicate to hit the ground inside. Bunny stood a few feet from the duplicate. Both of them shared a glare before charging at each other. He threw a fist at her, but the girl rolled forward on the ground in front of him and sent both her feet at his chest. The force was so strong that it sent him to the 2 other duplicates. The Powerpuff then got up and breathed hardly as she tried to calm down. She noticed someone coming and enhanced her vision to see who it was. It looked like a white and black robot with a D insignia on its chest. She at first thought it was a robot out to get her until she saw Danny inside it. Bunny breathed out a sigh of relief, not knowing that was a mistake. Just as Danny arrived, he came just in time to witness something. The real Nefarious appeared right in front of her and sent his 3 fingers into her back. Bunny screamed as she felt the pain. No. Danny could only scream. Suddenly Bunny's whole body glowed green. Her entire life force was sucked away until she turned into dust. Nefarious laughed wickedly at what he did before facing the phantom. "Well, I see you have that piece of junk running again. Tell me, do you really think you can beat me with it?" Danny gritted his teeth angrily. Even though he didn't know Bunny too well, it was still hurtful that someone died when saving his life. He held back his anger a bit and landed on the ground. "This isn't a hunk of junk. This is the Fenton Ectoskeleton 6.0, my parents' proudest ghost fighting technology. And now I'm gonna avenge every evil thing you did, including killing Sam." Just as he said that, Danny rushed at Nefarious and threw a blow to his chest. It nearly knocked the wind out of him, but the villain shrugged it off and punched Danny. The ghost hero skidded backwards but still stood. However, before he could react, Nefarious rushed at him and uppercut him. Danny got sent flying into the air, not too far from a high building. Nefarious got to the bottom and snickered as he looked up at the hero. "There's only one way this ends, Danny Phantom. It's either you win or I destroy you and everything in existence." Just as he said that, both fighters charged at each other. Nefarious resorted to climbing at the building very fast while Danny flew down at him at the same speed. In moments, both of them clashed, which resulted in a great impact that destroyed the entire building. Nefarious ended up being flung out of the clash and sent crashing into a building still in construction. Danny flew right after the villain and went through a top floor. He landed and looked around, but suddenly got him at the chest by a metal structure. Danny hit a billboard in the sight and fell to the ground. As he got up, he found Nefarious hovering in the air. "I was trained from the very start to fight and MSTR my senses, boy." "Where were you trained?" "In a lab." At the last word, Nefarious's body began to glow green. Even though the Fenton ectoskeleton was at the villain's height, the villain grew bigger than that. His body became buffer and more muscular as a lizard tail formed as well. His red eyes divided to form 4 eyes. Danny took a step back, but was still confident. He held both his hands almost together and charged up an ecto ball more powerful than the ones he normal made. The suit allowed him to increase his power by 50 times than its former. So with that he shot the blast, which sent the villain flying right out. Then he flew right after him. The phantom hero came close to him and landed a punch on the villain's face. That was enough to knock him a bit away. However, the villain recovered and punched him right back. It became a fist fight as both tried to overcome the other. Fortunately, Danny's final punch was just enough to knock the villain uncontrollably away. He came at him again and punched him again, sending the villain flying away. Nefarious recovered quickly from the attacks. He saw Danny coming at him and quickly flew off to avoid him. Danny flew after him, but found that the villain was nowhere to be found. He kept flying around in search of him until the villain suddenly appeared out of nowhere and punched him at the side. Danny got sent uncontrollably and was hit again as he was sent flying away again. Appearing again, Nefarious grabbed Danny's robot suit's chest and dashed him through the windows of several buildings. Danny reacted quickly as he backhanded the bigger being and kicked him. Nefarious got sent a few feet back and foiled an ecto punch to the face by grabbed it. He grinned at Danny's face before punching his chest. Danny got sent a few feet higher before Nefarious came at him again. Both foes fought with glowing ecto fist. They even resulted to intangibility to avoid getting hit. Nefarious got the upper hand as he sent a direct blow to the hero's chest. It was so powerful that it knocked him through several buildings. Danny was able to get in control of himself at the last minute and shot up higher into the air. Nefarious came at him and hit him again, but this time Danny withstood it. Seeing an opportunity, Nefarious flew backwards and held his glowing green hands up. The skies suddenly became darker and greener before shooting lightning at the hero. At first he was able to dodge some of the attacks, but another hit him in the back. The suit couldn't handle the damage, hence it crashed into the ground so hard that it shook the entire city. A battle cry suddenly came above him. Danny's eyes flew wide as he knew what was coming. Quickly he became intangible, just in time as Nefarious came stomping down. The impact was so strong that it destroyed foundations of buildings and sent them collapsing. People began running for their lives in an attempt to get away from the battle. Danny came out of the ground and became tangible again. He turned to Nefarious and snarled at him. The villain was taking away more lives and putting innocent lives in danger even while they were fighting. Danny's eyes became so brightly green, causing so much of his energy to cover him and the battle suit. His speed was fast that when he came at Nefarious he didn't see it coming, especially when the teen uppercut him. The force of the attack sent Nefarious going so high. He finally was able to come to a stop, just in time as Danny appeared right in front of him. The ghost teen yelled in pure anger, "I won't let you take any more lives, Nefarious. I don't care if Ben is around or not to take you down. This is my city and my home and no one will suffer anymore because of you." As Danny finished talking, his power just increased. Nefarious noticed the level of power coming from the teen, but didn't act fast enough. Danny immediately let out his a different, yet more powerful, ghostly wail. Though it looked like the ones he usually used, it was combined with his ice powers. Danny's ghostly wail came so fast and hit Nefarious. The villain tried holding back against it, but was finding it hard to do so. Small ice spikes also came from the wail and scratched through his hard body. With the massive power of the ghostly wail and ice powers, Nefarious couldn't hold it back anymore. The ghostly ice wail injured him and shot him right into the outskirts of town. The toll of using the ghostly wail finally weighed on Danny. Even though he has gotten used to using his ghostly wail, the one he used was entirely different and very powerful. The Fenton ectoskeleton had increased that power, which was why Nefarious couldn't take it so much. In fact, even though they were above the city, the people could still hear it and had to cover their ears while buildings almost crumbled from it. However, despite all of that, Danny was able to fly to the outskirts of the city. He found Nefarious lying in a massive crater. Fortunately, no one was around to get hurt. So now it was just over. Danny let out a sigh of relief and closed his eyes to rest for a few minutes. However, his attention shot right back up when his ghost sense went off. Looking down, vines suddenly shot out of the ground and wrapped around each of his legs, arms and waist. Danny let out a grunt as he tried using his powers, but to no avail. The Fenton ectoskeleton was too weak to even fight, which was really bad for Danny. The vines glowed green and squeezed right through the armor, causing more damage to it. Within the suit, Danny was pressing random buttons to escape. The suit was blinking red as its defenses were destroyed. "Come on! Eject already!" Danny cried out in panic. The phantom hero finally found it and slammed his hand on the button. The glass dome over him opened and he was launched right out of the suit. It was good though, because as he left, the suit exploded. Danny hit the ground hard and changed back to normal. He let out a groan and weakly got up. His eyes went up and saw small debris of his destroyed suit falling to the ground. He was already weak and tired and was unsure on what to do. The ring around his waist appeared and changed him back to his normal form. He fell on his butt. Suddenly laughter echoed around the black-haired teen. Then Nefarious appeared right in front of him with a huge grin on his face. He bent down to Danny and said to him, "I guess I win. And that just means I get to destroy everything on this planet." "What?" "No." Danny cried out. However, his words went unhindered. Nefarious stood up straight and began laughing again. He held his hand and shot a small green orb. It went high up and was gone out of sight. Danny looked up and waited to see something horrifying, but didn't see anything. Confused, he looked back at the villain. "Wait, that was it? Haha. You're gonna regret saying that," Nefarious only said before at New Amity Park. Suddenly a huge boom erupted through the skies. A huge ecto-doom landed in the center of New Amity Park and began to expand. It destroyed everything and everyone in its path. People ran for their lives in an attempt to save their lives. But it took them all away. The ecto-doom finally came into view for both Nefarious and Danny. The black-haired teen gasped in shock as the doom destroyed the entire city. Nefarious laughed triumphantly and looked back at Danny. He saw him get up to his feet and change back into his ghost form. "You can't stop it, boy. It's all over for you and everything on this pitiful planet." Nefarious gloated. Danny sent a glare at the villain, but did nothing to get him. Instead he said, "I don't care, as long as I'm breathing I won't let it happen. I'll avenge my home. Ha! Good luck, kid." With that said, Nefarious disappeared. Danny turned his attention back at the expanding dome. It didn't matter if it was coming his way or not, it was going everywhere. Danny gathered up all the energy he could and flew at the dome. He charged up his fist and threw it at the dome with much power as he could. It combusted upon impact and became faster and took Danny Phantom. Then it went so fast that it began to destroy nearby towns and the people habiting them. It even reached to the Fenton RV, which was occupied by Tucker, Valerie, Danny's family, Valerie's dad and Tucker's parents. They looked through the back and saw the dome coming. Despite how much speed Jack put into the RV, everyone and everything was taken away too. Meanwhile in Dimsdale. Poof! From a magical pink sparking smoke, Timmy, his fairy god family and Ben appeared in Timmy's room. They were all laughing, likely from the fun in space. Ben was the first to speak. "Cosmo, you are one crazy dude." "Crazy?" Cosmo said so cheerful. "Crashing into exploding asteroids isn't crazy, it's just pure morality." Wanda sighed. "Cosmo, there's no such thing as morality. My point has been proven. Now let's us eat cake." At that last second Cosmo poofed a box. The box opened and a boxing club sprung right out and hit him at the face. The fairy hit the wall and groaned, "Ouch, cake icing really packs a punch." Timmy only laughed before going to talk with Ben. While that happened, Poof went to the window and noticed something. Looking out, he became alarmed and called out to the others. The first to come was Cosmo. "Oh look, a big green party light." Wanda flew to the window and yelled at him, "That's not possible, you dimwit. The sun is still up." "Oh really? Then explain why it's heading towards us and destroying everything in its path." "Say what?" Everyone, other than Cosmo, shouted. Quickly Ben and Timmy looked out the window. It turned out that what Cosmo mistaken was actually the ecto-dome heading their way. Of course they didn't know that it has destroyed New Amity Park and everyone habiting it. Timmy turned to his fairies and exclaimed out loud, "Cosmo, Wanda, get that thing out of here. I wish it was gone." Wanda held up her wand while Cosmo twirled it. The green-haired said so cheerfully again, "You got it, Timmy." One party light going off. Together, both fairies' wands brightened, but then made a fart sound. Timmy looked back out of the window to see if it was gone. Ben followed, but both were shocked to see that it was coming. The buck-toothed boy quickly turned back to his fairies. "Guys, what's the hold-up? It's still coming here." "It's too powerful, Timmy." Wanda told him as she looked at her wand, "My wand detects that it's a powerful ghostly energy." "Okay. So what now?" Ben held up his hand that had the Omnitrix. He looked at Timmy with a determined look, "It just means it's hero time." Before Ben could use the Omnitrix, Cosmo interrupted as he looked at his watch, "Sorry, Ben, but it's pizza time." Ben chose to ignore the fairy as he went to the Omnitrix. Then the oddest thing happened. A blue portal suddenly appeared and a voice said out from it, "Now is not the time, Benjamin." "What?" Suddenly hands emerged from it and took Ben into the portal. Timmy shouted Ben's name, but the portal closed. Before he could think of what to do, someone appeared behind him in a pink sparking poof. The fairies and Timmy turned back to see Jorgen von Straggle standing there. "Jorgen, what are you doing here?" Timmy asked. "No time to explain." Jorgen shouted with his usual stern face. He grabbed the fairies with one hand and the other with Timmy. Then he poofed away, just in time as the house was taken by the dome itself. Sometime later, Nefarious stomps down on where the house used to be. He crackled with laughter as he looked at the deserted area that used to be. His laughter came to an end but his grin remained. "You may have gotten away, but it doesn't matter. Just run from me for the rest of your life, Ben Tennyson, because at long last the multiverse is once and truly mine." Ha 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 ha. Ben looked around him in confusion. He didn't know how, but he was in a strange place. Everywhere he turned was blackness with strange blue energy lights lightening the place. When he turned around him again he found Timmy and his fairies. Timmy saw his friend and quickly ran to him. Then he asked, "Dude, where the heck are we?" "I believe I can answer that," said another voice. Both voices were caught unaware by the voice. They all turned to the source of the voice and saw Professor Paradox, Clockwork and Jorgen. All three of them stood side by side accordingly. Clockwork had a deadpan face, Paradox had a mid-cheerful look and Jorgen just looked really irritated. Now that the three had their attention, Paradox continued, "It doesn't matter where we are, this is not a place so it is not a question that I can answer." As he said that he pointed to the light blue lines and swirls that they could see, if you think of time and space as a tree with branches. "Oh no! Homework!" Cosmo screamed. Wanda held her wand at his mouth and it was replaced by a zipper. She then said to Paradox, "Go on please. Then you and I are on a leaf that has fallen from it. But now there isn't any tree. Nefarious chopped it down." Just as he said that, some of the lights disappeared. A few still remained but they changed into red. Nonetheless, Ben was shocked at what Paradox said. He went to the professor, "But it can't be. I was only gone for an hour or two." "No duh, Einstein," Jorgen said irritated. "Don't blame the young boy, Jorgen," Paradox said to him. "I don't. As he said that, he walked over to Timmy and pointed him. I blame him. If it weren't for you, Turner, BEN10 would have been able to fight and win. Ben snarled angrily and pushed Jorgen's finger away from Timmy. Then he yelled at the giant, you leave Timmy out of this. It isn't his fault. It's mine. No, Ben. Timmy said sadly, it really is my fault. Ha. See, he admits. Enough. Everyone stopped that instant. Clockwork was the one to do it. He then spoke up, Benjamin, while you were gone, Nefarious arrived and killed everyone, including Bunny and Daniel. His taste for power grew so much that he attacked Fairy World and drained its magic. There is a book he knew so long ago, but it was not in Timothy's universe. Paradox then took over. No, it was in the Powerpuff Girls universe. Sadly, you can imagine the devastation that occurred before he obtained the special book. This book is called the Book of Narration. Now this book is like a seed to the tree that is the multiverse, and with it is ultimate power over everything. The leaves our universe contains countless universes, so you can see how our universe is made. Wow. Timmy could only say as he felt a strain his head, I can barely get all of that in my head. Ben didn't listen to Timmy. His mind was too wrapped up on what has just happened. He said sadly, so Nefarious has won, huh? Yes. Clockwork answered, despite chopping the tree down, he still stabilized some universes, but barely, I might add. Which is the reason you see those red energies above and around us. Paradox added. Ben looked to the ground with deep and sorrowful eyes. Timmy noticed it and went to lay a hand on him as comfort, but the boy shrugged it off. Instead he walked away until he noticed a bright light before him. He had to shield his eyes, which made him to look at the Omnitrix. A new spark of confidence started and spread all over him. No longer depressed, he turned to everyone with a determined look, this isn't over, guys. Take me to Nefarious and I'll kick his butt. Huh, now that's the BEN10 attitude I'm used to. Paradox smiled, sadly it's too dangerous to take you to the current crisis. However, we can take you to the time Nefarious went to Fairy World. Ben nodded in acknowledgement. Then he turned back and looked at his front, mark my words. This is far from over. Things weren't looking really good for Fairy World. Even though the magical floating cloud has received its times of danger, nothing could prepare it for what is happening. The Fairy World's power plant was in total peril. The military had been dispatched to stop the threat from getting the big wand. However, that was way easier said than done. The threat was so powerful that it took down anything that stood in his way. Jorgen appeared a few blocks away. A whole unit of military fairies were right behind. They had military trucks, tanks and other vehicles that had weapons. Their weapons resembled Earth's military forces, but the only thing Earth didn't have was magic. All loaded and ready, the fairies waited for Jorgen's command. They could all see the sight of destruction as their fairy brothers and sisters sacrificed their lives to stop the threat. Jorgen finally saw an opening and shouted, "Fire!" Immediately all military personnel let out a furious amount of firepower. They hit the threat directly, causing an explosion so big that it almost knocked everyone away. The dust cloud finally settled down. Everyone waited to see the threat was down. It was all quiet until laughter suddenly erupted the air. Looking up, everyone saw the threat hovering with a wide smirk on his face. He didn't have a single scratch on him. All these attempts are nothing but childish obstruction in my way. Now prepare to be wiped off the face of this world. Just as he said that, he widened his mouth and released the most destructive ghostly wail that could ever be produced. His ghostly wail was so powerful that it seriously injured everyone in its path and destroyed everything else. By the time it was really hard to say how bad things were. If some weren't dead, then they're only injured severely. The whole battlefield looked like a war between two opposing sides occurred, but really it wasn't. Jorgen lay on the ground, totally beaten. His uniform was almost completely shredded off while he also had serious bruises. The once powerful fairy groaned as he tiredly turned his head at Nefarious and said, "Ha! I've taken worse beatings from a toothpick." Wait, did that sound right? Jorgen's question wasn't answered though, as his body was lifted from the head by Nefarious's huge hand. The all-powerful being let Jorgen stand, just for Jorgen to see how huge Nefarious towered over him. Jorgen gulped in fear. Did I say that ridiculous thing? I meant that too, Cosmo. That's right. Cosmo. Shut up. Nefarious simply said as he had his huge fist above Jorgen. Then he stomped it down on the fairy, making the magical being's body to be stuck in the ground, except by his head. Jorgen felt so dizzy that he had to shake his head to gain full concentration. Wow, I didn't see that coming. Next thing Jorgen knew, Nefarious stomped his foot on his face and walked away. Jorgen spit out dirt and stuck his tongue out in disgust. DMN. My mouth was open. Any other military forces that tried to stop Nefarious were all in vain. He just made his way through it all until he finally got to stand before the giant wand. The all-powerful villain took the time to marvel at the powerful magical energy that powered most of Fairy World. It won't be long till he absorbed it all. At last, I shall have all the power I need for the final step to true ultimate power. Once he said it, he held his hands open and shot green beams to the star-sharpened wand. It attached to the wand and soon began to send magical energy to Nefarious. Yes. 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 I can feel myself getting stronger at every passing second. Nefarious then laughed hysterically as he kept absorbing the power. His attention was so much at the big wand, that he was caught off guard when a black alien with a white stripe on its chest and plug-like tendrils landed on his shoulders. The alien smirked and clamped his hands on Nefarious. His plug-like fingers began to absorb the energy as he spoke back, "Then how about I take them all away?" Nefarious screamed in pain. It hurt him badly, but he was able to backhand the alien off him. He stopped absorbing the big wand as he turned back to face the alien. Well, isn't this surprising? You finally showed up, Tennyson. I guess it took the entire extinction of mankind to get your attention. Nefarious said so evilly. As feedback, Ben growled, "I'll make you pay, Nefarious. Before you do, let me tell you a fun fact." Nefarious chuckled, knowing how bad Ben's reaction will be next. He spoke, "When you visited the Ninja Turtles, it was still in this universe. That means I destroyed most of the people you knew. Ha 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 ha. You monster." Feedback was so overwhelmed with anger that he let out a huge blast at Nefarious. The powerful being shielded himself with his hands, which saved him from getting hit. Once put his hands down, Feedback came at him and kicked him at the face. It was only enough to nudge the villain's head up, but still not enough. That instant, Nefarious grabbed Feedback's ankle and knocked the hero's body to the ground. He then stomps his huge leg down on him, causing the ground to explode as Feedback's body was dug deep in. Nefarious took Feedback's ankle again and knocked him on the ground. Then he threw him away and disappeared, just to reappear right behind Ben. His fist was already at the approaching beaten hero. Suddenly Feedback rotated his body and grabbed Nefarious's hand. That allowed him to make himself go over Nefarious and land behind him. The powerful villain swung his fist at Feedback, but the hero ducked body then jumped into the air, allowing his foot to kick Nefarious's chin. The kick wasn't strong enough, but did distract Nefarious for a second. That was just enough time for Feedback to send his tendrils onto Nefarious's head. Then he absorbed so much energy that Nefarious cried out in pain. The hero felt his whole body tingle with power. It mainly went to his fists, which he then used to hit Nefarious's face, almost at the same time. Nefarious stumbled back a bit, but that didn't stop Ben. The hero jumped onto Nefarious's chest and continued pummeling him with more punches. The more Ben absorbed from his tendrils, the more blows he let out on Nefarious's face. It was basically using his foe's energy against him. Nefarious became so overwhelmed that he couldn't concentrate to fight back. Feedback stopped his attack momentarily as he clamps his own tail's plug on to Nefarious's side. He's so much power that he held both his hands almost together and charged a football-sized energy ball. Once it was charged up, Feedback knocked it right on Nefarious's head. The impact was so powerful that it threw both of them away. Nefarious ended up crashing through the surface of the ground. Feedback landed on his feet, though it brushed the ground before coming to a stop. Some minutes passed as both foes stayed silent. Feedback took a step to finish the fight, when Nefarious got up to his feet. The villain groaned in pain, though that was overcome with a snarl. Nefarious looked directly at Feedback and said with malice in his voice, "I'll make you hurt, very bad." Before Ben could react, Nefarious came so fast that he was able to punch the hero right at the chest. That would have knocked him away, but Nefarious was far from done. The villain gripped Feedback's wrist so he wouldn't be knocked away. Then he let go and ran around Feedback as fast as a blur. As he did it, he began to throw punches and ecto beams at the hero. Feedback felt so much in pain. All he could do was receive so much beating, much to Nefarious's satisfaction. It didn't last long, as the villain came a stop right in front of him. Feedback was barely able to stand still. Nefarious chuckled with a wide grin, before he threw a hard fist at Feedback's upper chest. The power of such an attack was able to knock Feedback through a few complex buildings and barracks. By the time Feedback came to a stop, he lay on the top of a now shattered vehicle. Suddenly the Omnitrix timed out that very moment. A flash of green light engulfed Ben, changing him back to normal. Ben let out a weak groan. Even though he was back to normal, he still felt weak. His eyes were able to open though, as he now saw Nefarious standing before him with his hands raised up. The villain had a serious look on his face as he spoke, "I'm gonna cut this short and end you. Now die, kid." Nefarious balled his hands to fists before sending it down on Ben. The young hero would have been a goner, if not that he was poofed out of the way. That angered Nefarious, as he ended up hitting the vehicle, which exploded instantly. Ben reappeared on a small tower-like viewpoint. Next to him were Timmy and his fairies. They were able to pull the hero away before he could be crushed by Nefarious. Wanda pointed her wand at Ben. It was enough to make his whole body glow, as his pain quickly demised that instant. Sparky frowned as a thought came to him, "Guys, do you think it was a good idea to stay somewhere this high, especially when there's a super powerful bad guy that's really mad now?" Timmy became wide-eyed, come on." Suddenly Nefarious appeared right before them, while hovering the air. Like Sparky said earlier, he looked really mad. "Surrender the boy, human." "No way, scale face." Timmy yelled. Cosmo looked at his godson with a raised eyebrow, "Scale face? That all you could get?" "What?" "It was all I could get." At this point, Ben was completely healed. The magical energy vanished. Now the hero stood ready, glaring at his enemy. Suddenly, Nefarious grew really big. His body became so huge that he was out of view for the teens and fairies. "Guys, get us out of here!" Timmy immediately shouted. Cosmo, Wanda, and Poof raised their magical items and poof everyone away. That was good, as Nefarious' gigantic fist came down on the place that once stood. The teens and fairies reappeared on the top of a barack. It was mildly far from Nefarious, but he could still be seen. "Wow, why are we still in fairy world?" Timmy asked in utmost shock. "We can't, sport." Wanda answered, "Nefarious seems to be keeping us in his range somehow." Before any word could be said, the ultimate supervillain appeared right before them. His eyes were at Ben, who was also shared the same look. "Do you really believe you can stop the future? You're just a kid." Nefarious yelled with so much anger. "I'm not just a kid, Nefarious." Ben yelled back, "I'm the kid that's gonna stop you." Just as he said that, Ben turned to Timmy, "I'm gonna turn into another alien." And you want us to clear out of the way? Timmy questioned. No. I want you to throw me at Nefarious. Wait. You're kidding, right? Ben felt like hitting Timmy, but he knew better not to. Instead he turned his attention to the Omnitrix and scrolled through the alien holograms. Finally he came across the alien he needed, and then slammed down on it. Suddenly Ben's whole body was engulfed in a flash of green light. It was so bright that it made Timmy and his fairies to cover their eyes. It was after the transform that they uncovered their eyes to see Ben. Where's Ben? Timmy questioned with a terrified look. He looked all around above him, but only saw Nefarious looking right down at him. Maybe he's so big that we can't see him. Cosmo came up with the dumb idea. Cosmo, that only works if he was small. Wanda replied. Actually, I'm over here. What? Everyone shouted in unison. Everyone turned to where Ben once stood, but only got to see a small green ball. It suddenly opened to reveal humanoid and dragon-like appearance. Timmy's face became neutral upon seeing what Ben was. We're screwed, aren't we? No. Just throw me at Nefarious. Fine. Timmy sighed. Timmy grabbed on to Ben. He got into a baseball stance and threw him at the giant supervillain. At first nothing happened until Ben unwrapped himself from ball form. Then his eyes flashed green before his whole body was engulfed in spinning green flame. Through the flames, Ben emerged as a green humanoid dragon. His fist immediately went up at Nefarious's chin, with a force so strong that it sent the villain flying a few feet away. When Ben landed on the ground, it shook and sent a huge dust cloud. Timmy and his fairies felt it all until it passed away. They uncovered their eyes once the dust cloud was gone and marveled at their gigantic friend. Awesome! Dude, I'm so sorry I had doubt in you. Timmy exclaimed weirdly. Ben turned to him and replied, Dude, it's fine. Ben's alien form is a large humanoid with minor scales on his body. He has a long silver horn on his nose, 2 large dragon wings on his back and a long green tail that has a sharp end. Ben didn't wear any clothes, but the species his apian form came didn't consider themselves naked. His abs were clearly shown right below metal silver clamps that are attached to the Omnitrix insignia. A chuckle suddenly caught the attention of everyone as the owner got up. Nefarious had a wide grin on his face before it mellowed down to a small smirk. I was beginning to wonder if this war between us would go down that easily. You see, Tennyson, I want you to give it your all before I end your life and everyone. Ben sent an angry glare at Nefarious. It was very clear that Ben wants to end the murderer right there. The alien form he possesses is from a race from Bakugans. He acquired the DNA after accomplishing a test by one of the species' legendary soldiers. At that, he tightened his fist and spoke. I won't let you get away with what you've done. Nefarious. Those friends you killed are my family and no one takes them from me. Immediately as he said that, Ben spreads out his wings and took off into the air. Nefarious looked up and leapt right off the ground to combat his foe. As Nefarious came at the hero, the villain threw his fist at him. However, Ben caught it with an open hand and threw his fist right back at Nefarious's. He kept hitting Nefarious right at the face until he let go, grabs the villain's head and hit his own head again. That was enough force to send Nefarious to the ground. Once the villain hit the ground, he got right up and opened his mouth. Then he let out his ghostly wail at Ben with so much power in it. Though the wail came really fast, Ben was faster. He was able to fly out of the way as a blur. By the time Nefarious stopped and realized the hero was gone, he was hit from the side by Ben, which sent him scratching through the ground. By the time the mighty villain came to a stop, he had already dug through the fairy world's surface. Meanwhile, Timmy and his fairies were watching the whole thing. Wow! Ben's new alien packs a lot of punch. Wanda said in surprise. I know, right? Timmy too was excited. Dragnell is so awesome. Dragnell? Yeah. Since Ben isn't in the mood to name his alien, I thought I can do it for him. Timmy was taken aback when a glowing green light emerged his right hand. Looking at it, he saw the light die down to reveal cards. Okay, that was weird, Timmy said as he eyed the cards. Wanda drew his attention as she spoke. Timmy, there's something written at the bottom, maybe you should read them. Timmy, Sparky, Cosmo, and Poof looked at Wanda for a second, then right after that, they erupted into a fit of laughter. Timmy. Read? Ha, wow, that's so funny. Cosmo laughed some more. Wanda shook her head disappointedly before she took the card out of Timmy's hand. She read what she saw earlier and smiled big. Timmy, I think you're gonna love this. Those words stopped the others from laughing. They now had their attention at Wanda. So far the battle between Ben and Nefarious was ongoing with the boy winning. Nefarious became invisible and flew off. That caused Ben to look all around for the villain, but to no avail. His ears suddenly perk up as they sensed a faint movement heading his way. The next thing Nefarious knew, the boy vanished. Actually, Ben had flew off so fast that he couldn't be seen. He finally showed himself, behind Nefarious. You can't sneak up at someone with enhanced hearing. The boy snarled. As Ben sent a kick at Nefarious's back, it went right through it. The villains turned 360 degrees at Ben, as he then made a remark. Don't hit what you can touch, boy. Nefarious opened his mouth and prepared to blast fire at Ben. However, that was foiled when Ben suddenly shot his hand at the villain's mouth and shut it closed. It hurt badly, but Ben ignored it as he casted a deadly glare. I notice, Ben said as a response. Immediately Ben sent several fast punches at different parts of Nefarious's chest, all within a few seconds. Once he was done, he spun his body and Nefarious around before letting go of him. Nefarious kept falling uncontrollably. His consciousness quickly sparked back him to stop as his body took control of his falling. Now he maintained himself in the air. I'm not done with you, cried out an angry voice. Looking up, Nefarious found Ben heading towards him with his whole body engulfed in green flames. The hero swung his foot at Nefarious as he shouted, Fire Dragon Mighty Kick. Once the attack came, Nefarious tried to hold it at bay. However, that failed cause his foot broke right out of the villain's grip and hit him right in the face. It was so strong that it knocked Nefarious right into the ground. For a short time, Ben panted. To him, he wasn't tired out yet. In fact, he would have acted out immediately again, if not that he suddenly felt a whole lot of energy shoot right through his body. Questions popped into his mind that he was about to answer, but didn't have to. Timmy suddenly appeared on his shoulder. His clothes was now a pink leather coat Wanda, green pants Cosmo, and a purple watch Poof. Timmy, what are you doing here? Ben asked. I'm here to help you out, dude. Timmy replied. Ben sighed, dude, I appreciate it, but I already have Nefarious on the ropes. I don't need any casualties. Timmy was about to reply about Ben's statement, when suddenly the clouds became really dark. The wind then picked up so harshly that Ben found it hard to hold on. Then, to make matters worse, a tornado formed right from above and sucked them in its current. Both boys screamed as they kept going. Timmy reached into his coat's pocket and pulled out a card. It had some English writings at the bottom with the Omnitrix symbol on the center. Dragon Storm. Activate. Immediately Ben's wings became engulfed in flames, which increased its power greatly. With a huge flap of his wings, the tornado was dispersed. Wow! What did I just do? Ben asked in surprise. Actually, we did it, Timmy told him as he held out the card he used. Well, Wanda, found out that these cards are the powers you can use. That means we can give Nefarious a serious beatdown. Awesome. It so is. Now let's go kick some serious butts, Dragnell. Timmy exclaimed out loud. For a moment Ben stared at Timmy because of the name he mentioned. But that changed when he nodded and flew off. The wind suddenly picked up harshly, but it wasn't a problem for the heroes. They flew right through it, even when lightning came their way. Ben was astonished. Wow. We're doing great. I know, right? Timmy agreed. Timmy, we gotta talk about your wish. Wanda spoke up. From the expression on her face, she was really worried. She said, transferring all the power of the giant wand into Ben is really risky. Maybe we should send it back. You did what? Ben yelled. Timmy smiled sheepishly. I kind of wished you had all the giant wand's power. Hee, sorry about that. But at least I had every fairy wished away to safety. Guys, look out. Poof shouted. Immediately as Poof shouted that, 3 large lightning bolts came out of nowhere and hit the hero. Dragnell gritted his teeth as he expected surge of pain, but nothing really happened. What just happened? Ben asked. It's easy, Benji. Cosmo said. It's Ben. Right, Benningham. Ugh. Poof intervened. Sorry about that, Ben. What my dad means to say is that the fairy magic in you makes you invincible. Nice. Ben smirked. Dragnell's whole body began to tingle as yellowish sparkling aura came all over him. With this new power, he flew off in a speed so fast that it would put any universal speed force to shame. Suddenly everywhere became filled with fogs, but it wasn't a problem for the heroes and their fairies. Wanda poofed an eye-seeing goggle that allowed him to see through the fog. Dragnell's eyes easily picked up Nefarious. Ability card activate. Timmy shouted as he held another card. Fire Dragon Force Drive. Dragnell felt a large amount of power rush through his entire body. He flew right at Nefarious and threw a power Nefarious. It didn't end there though. Dragnell kept coming with more blows than anyone could keep track of. He hit Nefarious from every part of his body, before coming from the back again and kicking him right at the back head. Nefarious hit the ground so terribly that the shockwave leveled down so many houses in Fairy World. His body shook as he felt every pain course through his body. Dragnell landed on the ground, with his eyes open. Upon spotting Ben, Nefarious got up from the ground and flew at the large humanoid hero. His whole body became covered in green ghostly aura. However, once Dragnell snapped both eyes open, a force so strong and sudden sent Nefarious flew for a mile away. Time to try out some fairy magic, Ben said with a tone of excitement. Just as the hero said that, his 2 hands were occupied by 2 swords. His hands gripped the weapons tightly before he charged really fast at Nefarious. At that same time, Nefarious just got up, though barely. But nothing could prepare him for the numerous attacks he was about to get. Dragnell approached the weakened villain in seconds. He first slashed his blade right at Nefarious's chest that caused the villain to cry out in pain, but it didn't end there. Nefarious revolted as he backhanded the hero. It only pushed Dragnell a bit far, but the hero was still on his feet. Though weakened, Nefarious held an open hand at Dragnell and shot a direct ecto-beam at him. It came fast, but the hero didn't make any move to get out of the hero. Instead he held both sword in AX position and straightened his wings. Another huge surge of energy flowed through Dragnell. He then used his wings to maximize his power as he then charged right through the beams even though his legs didn't leave the ground. By the time he got to Nefarious it was too late for the villain. Dragnell swung his left sword at the use Nefarious was using, which cut it clean off. Nefarious let out a loud cry of pain. He turned back, when suddenly Dragnell came from that direction and cut the other hand off. Then he skidded his feet through the ground as he turned around and cut the villain leg right off. The supervillain's cry became louder from each attack. Dragnell was swift and very deadly than usual. Nefarious could see this and tried hopping back with his 1 foot. However, that only created the space Dragnell needed to spun his body around and slash his chest. Then the final attack came when he spun his body one last time and punched Nefarious right in the face. Such power of Dragnell threw Nefarious really far away. Not only that, but it made an impact force that broke through the ground itself. Fairy world shook just from the last blow. You ready? Timmy grew a smirk as he looked at Ben. You know it. Dragnell responded with a wide grin. Dragnell shot right off the ground. His entire body glowed so much brighter than before, and it was really terrifying. Timmy brought out 2 cards and shouted out the commands. Double ability cards activate. Both cards glowed really bright. Fire Dragon Mighty Wing Slash. Suddenly Dragnell's wings became engulfed in fire. The young hero spread them out, which showed just how strong the flames are. Plus, Fire Dragon Mighty. Iron Impact Fists. Dragnell finished. Suddenly both of Dragnells were engulfed in fire. With the new surge of power, he flew right off with so much speed that it was faster than a supernova. His sight were locked on Nefarious, who he crashed right on, and as a result created an impact so devastating that it blew apart a quarter of Fairy World. Last to be heading was Nefarious's scream. A huge pink dust cloud covered everywhere. It would take an hour for it to clear off, but it suddenly did right away to reveal Dragnell in a pose. His right knee was on the ground while the other was straight backwards. His breathing was heavy as his fist was just at the new edge of Fairy World, due to some of it being blown off. Some time after, Dragnell stood up to his feet. He looked around him in search of Nefarious, but found no trace of the supervillain. Timmy looked around too, but like his friend he found nothing. Did we beat him? Timmy asked. I think so. Ben answered, I don't sense his energy signature. Then does that mean we? Yes, Timmy. We won. Timmy smiled so wide and exclaimed so loud in happiness. His fairies poofed off from being his clothes and joined in a happy moment. Dragnell smiled a bit, but it turned to a frown. Timmy and his fairies didn't know until Timmy turned his head to his friend. Dude, why the frown? We won. Yes, but the cost of it was a lot. Ben replied and sighed. Cosmo then interfered, I know right. You and Timmy sure did a huge mess on Fairy World. It's a whole lot worse than the destruction Timmy causes, and trust me, that's a lutut. Shut up, Cosmo. Everyone shouted at the fairy at the same time. Timmy sighed and smiled a bit. Dude, I know what you mean. Now normally I'm not the one for comforting, but I'll give it a try. I lost a lot too. That was my Earth, not yours. My friends, family, life, all gone now. I know this is really HRD on you, but it is for me too. But don't let that stop you, Ben. You still have your own Earth with your friends and family that are still waiting for you. So try to hang in there, Ben. Please, okay. A few tears ran down the brown-haired teen's cheeks. He sniffed a bit as he wiped it off. Dragnell nodded a bit as he returned a pleased smile. Thank you, Timmy. No problem, dude. Cosmo, Wanda, and Poof were holding back tears. The wave of emotions they felt was so much that they let out fountain of tears from their eyes. That was so appealing. Wanda cried. I know, right? Usually Timmy is too dumb to think this stuff up. Cosmo cried too. Timmy glared at Cosmo. I'm right here. And for the record, it was Mum forcing me to watch those angst romance movies that got me to say that. Dragnell chuckled from the humor. Everyone stopped what they were doing and joined in on the humor too. The best to guess now is that things are gonna go well. Above what is left of Fairy World, Dragnell flew to the power plant. The big Wanda was inactive as its star was black. That was easily known because Dragnell had all the fairy magic within him. But that was not why he, Timmy and the fairies were there. Timmy had Sparky stay away from the battle just so he can be safe. Again, tell me where Sparky is? Dragnell asked. Timmy looked right below in search of any sign of his dog. When he spotted a yellow dot waving at them, he pointed the direction. Over there. Dragnell nodded and flew down to the direction. He landed on the ground, allowing Timmy and his fairies to meet up with the dog. Sparky ran to them and began to breathe heavily. That worried Timmy a bit as he asked. "Sparky, what's wrong?" I found this bone," Sparky said and put a huge size bone in his mouth. "Is that all?" Timmy have him a look. "Yes, oh wait no. We got to get out of here now." "Why?" "Because this whole place is a mine trap." "What?" This time everyone shouted in shock. Suddenly green lines formed right on the surface of Fairy World. It only spread around the power plant as it went different ways to form a large circle with green circuits. Before Dragnell could react, he felt so much of his power rush right of his body. It was so painful that Dragnell cried out in pain. Timmy and his fairies watched in horror as sparkles of what are actually the big wand's magic fly right out his body. "Ben, quick. The magic is leaving you, you got to change back." Timmy let out his voice as loud as he could. "I can't." Quickly, Timmy turned to his fairies in hope of stopping what was happening. "Guys, I wish this all stopped." All his fairies raised their magical item, both nothing happened. Looking at the items, they found that the star on them was dead. Wanda looked at her godson with a horrified look and said words that made Timmy feel a scared shudder. "We can't." Cosmo laughed a bit. "Ha! I feel tingly." Everyone turned their attention to the green-haired fairy and found that half his body was gone and the rest was turning into dust that flew up to the air. "Cosmo, you're disappearing," Timmy stated in fear. "Oh," Cosmo said as he looked at himself. His head was the last to go, so he used that opportunity to look at Timmy. "Goodbye, Timmy. I love you." Cosmo's head turned into dust, right in front of his family. Timmy and the others cried out as the fairy was totally gone. But the worst hasn't even started yet. Wanda, Poof and Sparky suddenly found themselves evaporating into dust like Cosmo. They flew to Timmy with tearful eyes and hugged him so tight so they won't go. Timmy did the same, but their faith already sealed. They were completely evaporated like Cosmo, though Timmu could hear their voices for the last time. "Bye, sports," Wanda said. "I'll miss you, god brother," Poof said. "Best dog owner ever," Sparky said. Tears streamed right out of Timmy's eyes. His worst nightmare has finally come to life. He hoped that what was happening was really a nightmare and that he'll wake up. But he knew very well that it wasn't. Another rise in Ben's voice caught Timmy's attention. He turned back and saw Ben's body become engulfed in a green and red light. His body formed back to ball form before he fell to the ground. Then the Omnitrix timed out AMD changed him back to normal. "Ben!" Timmy cried out. He lost everything now. His fairies, family and friends are all gone now. But Ben was still around, though unconscious. But nonetheless he ran to the unconscious him and went on his knees. Then he carried the upper body and lay it on his legs. "Come on, Ben, you got to wake up and stop this. Please, I know you can. My whole world just got shattered and disappeared." Suddenly the buildings around them evaporated too. Timmy looked all around him and saw as thousands of fairies appeared around him. He had a deep bad feeling that things were just about to get worse, and indeed they did. All the fairies began to evaporate into dust like his fairies did. He saw fairies that he knew like Cupid, Jorgen, the Tooth Fairy and the Magic Council evaporate into dust. The rest were also turned to dust and now it was only Timmy and Ben left. Timmy allowed his eyes to watch as all the dust fly up in the air and spun around like a tornado. Green lightning flashed so violently as the fairy dusts went faster and formed into a familiar-looking being that caught Timmy by shock and fear. "Guess who's back?" The being chuckled. Timmy knew very well that the being was none other than Nefarious. The being's whole body began to charge with so much pink electricity, causing him to growl. His lips formed into a grin as his body began to evolve. The mutagen, combined with ghost powers and fairy magic and my own powers hurts so much. But now I am ultimate life form. Ha 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 ha. Just as he said that, a light blue and brown armor covered his body. His chin grew longer as his teeth became smaller but so snap. He grew another set on arms under his other hands, a long cyborg tail and large wings. With a loud and powerful roar, Nefarious was fully transformed to an invincible being of pure evil. Timmy was frozen in shock. His heart was beating so rapidly as he still experienced the horrors he just went through. Nefarious spotted the two teens and stomps his feet on the ground. Instantly it broke the ground so harshly that Timmy and the unconscious Ben were blown away. The next Timmy knew was that he was standing on a lone rock. The buck-toothed teen screamed as he held onto it so he wouldn't fall. He then heard laughter and saw Nefarious standing right in front of him in his 20 feet tall size. "What's the matter, human, did I blow your mind?" "Haha. Shut it," Timmy retorted. He held back every fear he held, though he couldn't hold back the tears. He then spoke. "We destroyed you. Just how the heck are you still alive? Hasty, aren't we?" Nefarious chuckled. "I guess I do owe you an explanation. You see, this isn't my first time almasi dying in the hands of Tennyson. So if you remember when I punched my fist on the ground, after when your fairies saved you and him, I actually sent an ancient spell that will revive me by collecting a large amount of power of the target victim. Of course your dumb dog found out about it by his fairy nose and tried to warn you. But it was too late. You monster!" Timmy cried out in pure anger. "Bring back my fairies. You got to give them back to me. We love each other, understand each other, so please give them back to me." "Sorry, kid, but I don't obey humans," Nefarious said with a satisfied tone. Nefarious's right eye flashed a bit. Timmy saw it and felt really light in the mind. His body instantly felt weak, before he then fell to the ground. Nefarious chuckled and spit into a large crack. The small thing glowed various colors as it went to the center of Fairy World. The supervillain let his wings spread open before he took off to the air. It was at that point that Ben came, though stumbling due to lack of strength. But despite it he was able to kneel right next to Timmy. Ben had heard everything Nefarious said to Timmy. It really made Ben mad, knowing that yet again he failed. His intention was to use the Omnitrix again, but it was out of power and his own body felt weak. It had taken some tries before he mustered the strength to walk. Timmy let out a weak as his eyes opened. He saw Ben, looking really beat up and weak. "I'm gonna die, aren't I?" Timmy asked the first thing that came to mind. "No you won't, I won't let you," Ben replied, though with sadness. The young hero received a smile from the buck-toothed teen. He was able to touch his hand on Ben's as he spoke again. "Don't blame yourself. Wow, it's funny really, even while I'm about to die my mind still has a short attention span and I'm thinking of one of those angst scenes my mom got me to watch. It was boring at first, but then when I saw the hero watch as all that he worked for die, he still got up and fought to avenge them." "Timmy, what are you trying to say?" Ben said, though no, he was finding it hard to say the right words. "I can't do anything. Nefarious wins. So what? The Ben Tennyson I knew was strong to the bitter end. Remember when Danny supposedly died? Well, you were always the first to believe the possibility that she was alive. So don't give up now. Avenge us." Just as Timmy finished saying that, his whole body was encased in crystal. Ben watched with tearful eyes as Timmy's whole body was turned into crystal. He held the crystal and cried his eyes out. But then it exploded into small sparkling lights. Finally Ben couldn't take it anymore. He let out a cry so loud that his voice dried out. But still he kept crying with his eyes shut closed. It was a sudden familiar laughter that made him to stop. Looking up, Ben saw Nefarious hovering above him and laughing. The young hero felt so much emotion rush all at once upon seeing the villain that has killed millions just for ultimate power and to get back at him. Nefarious knew the pain Ben was feeling. He could feel it just from where he was. His tongue licked his lips before he then spoke up. I told you before that I will take everyone from you. I've barely begun, Tennyson. I will take your family, those pathetic teen titans, the Bakugan brawlers, Juniper Lee and lastly Daniela Phantom. Until then, you're just gonna have to wait for them in the afterlife. Goodbye, BEN10. Once Nefarious finished, he flew right out of sight. Ben suddenly found the ground shaking as Nefarious's little, but powerful spit, began to destroy Fairy World. In seconds, it exploded into nothing. And Ben with it. Watching Fairy World be reduced to nothing was a great thing for Nefarious. Not only was his greatest foe dead, but now he has total power to act out his plans. He smiled at the thought and other things he wanted to do. I better not keep them waiting. Nefarious said without guilt. Turning back, he waved his hand, causing a portal to form. By looking into it, Nefarious could see a familiar-looking town. That very town was Bellwood. The superpowered villain grinned as he flew through the portal and stood on a pavement. He looked around and let out a deep sigh as he eyed his surroundings with evil intention. Ah, Bellwood. I haven't been here since I had that problem with the alternate 16-year-old Tennyson. Nefarious was standing on a driveway to a house. He didn't mind. He wanted to be there. It didn't take long for him to hear a car driving up to him. The car suddenly came to a halt upon seeing the huge size of Nefarious. A blonde woman came out from the driver's seat along with a brown-haired man. Upon seeing them, Nefarious let out a small chuckle that the two could hear. Mr. and Mrs. Tennyson, it's a pleasure to meet the parents of the deceased Ben Tennyson. Ben's mum suddenly felt shock by the sudden news. Tears then formed as she choked on what to say. But her husband was the opposite as he shot an angry glare. What does that mean? Mr. Tennyson yelled. It's exactly what I said. Nefarious replied so coolly. The supervillain held his hand up at the man. A sudden invisible force held the human in a green aura and lifted him off the ground. His wife held back a scream as she watched her husband hover helplessly in the air. The villain just grinned, but held his hand at her like a gentleman. Don't worry, I won't kill him yet. There are 2 other Tennysons that aren't here yet. It would be a shame if they weren't here to be a part of their own demise. You're insane. Sandra yelled at him. Why thank you. I try very much to be that. Nefarious chuckled evilly. Somewhere in the skies was an airship in Bellwood that housed a certain science family. This family have dealt with mystical creatures called cryptids and have had their own adventures. A 14-year-old Zach Saturday was standing at a guard railing. He was standing at a short-looking zoo, and facing a small nest that habited his pet Zon. From a bucket filled with fishes, he threw one at a time, and watched Zon catch and gulp each one down. The teen kept feeding the prehistoric-looking bird until someone called him. Zach. Looking to his right side, he saw a girl he has known for a few months now. Hey, Gwen. What's up? Zach asked. True to his words, it was Gwen. The red-haired walked to his side and sighed. It's nothing. I'm just worried, you know. About your cousin? Zach asked, but knew very well that it was. He rested his hand on her shoulder and responded. I understand how hard it is, Gwen. I promise you, we will find him. All right. Months had passed since Ben ran away. His parents, cousin and grandpa were all worried about him. A search party was soon formed, but with no success. When Grandpa Max got in touch with the creator of the Omnitrix, Azimuth, to help, the alien declined, saying that Ben was where he is supposed to be. But that didn't stop his family from searching. It wasn't until sometime after so much searching that Gwen decided to try communicating with Ben telepathically. By then Ben was in the Teen Titans universe when a crisis caused by Trigon Raven's father sank the world into a devastating state. Gwen was confused when she met Ben in the sewers, and was unaware that it was in another universe. As Gwen talked to Ben then, she was able to bring his spirit back up to fight, even though she didn't know what was going on. Her connection went off and she was unable to reinstate it. But it gave her hope to know that her cousin was alive and still fighting. 3 months later, Grandpa Max decided to expand his search with the plumbers and made contact with the secret scientists. The only ones interested to help were the Saturdays. Since then, they have been working on anything that could lead them to Ben. Now back to the current time, Gwen and Zack kept talking until the alarms suddenly went up. A moment passed before Doc Saturday's voice came up in the speakers. Attention everyone. Sensors have picked up an unusual energy in Bellwood. Get to the bridge immediately. Gwen gasped. Oh no. That's my home. Come on, let's go. Zack said right away. Immediately both teens ran to the door, with Zahn flying right behind them. Meanwhile, a squad of plumbers aligned themselves right at the home of the Tennysons. They had vehicle-sized tanks targeted at Nefarious and other officers pointing their guns at them. One of the plumbers held a blowhorn and spoke through it. Release the civilians this instant or else face immediate brute force. However, no response came from Nefarious. His grin formed to a small snarl as he held his fingers at the plumbers. Simpletons, I have no need to listen to you. Nefarious simply said. With a snap of his fingers, every single plumber and tanks were knocked away by a mighty force. But the fight wasn't over, depending on if you can call it a fight. 2 plumber-issued fighter jets suddenly came from the skies with their missiles ready to fire on the huge powerful being holding 2 humans hostage. However, the being saw them and pointed a single green glowing finger at them. A sudden command suddenly took over their minds, causing them to redirect their attacks to the fallen plumbers. Sandra almost screamed upon seeing missiles descend on the plumbers and make impact. Unfortunately, the terrible situation was not over. Like the previous attack wasn't enough, the fighter jets opened fire on other jets coming to assist. The ones that came were confused at the scene, and therefore failed to react when their own comrades fired on them. When that was done, the 2 fighter jets hit each other and exploded. The whole neighborhood seemed like a war zone just from the whole thing. People could be seen running for safety as police officers were deployed to control the situation. Some were able to help the civilians get to safety while a few went to confront the monster causing the panic. Immediately as the officers got there, they opened fire on Nefarious. Sandra immediately shouted to them. Get out of here. He'll destroy you too. Unfortunately it was too late. Just with a flick of his finger, Nefarious made the officers and their cars to float into the air and start rotating. It was a terrible scene as the cars came close to hitting the officers, if not that they suddenly fell to the ground and ran off to safety. The cause of it wasn't Nefarious doing. Upon looking at his arm, he found a rope attached to an animal's claw tied around it. The thing didn't harm Nefarious. But it did take his attention from the officers. Looking up, it turned out to be Zack Saturday, staying under a clothes patch that Zahn is carrying. The teen's eyes glowed orange and so did the claw. Zack tried to make a psychic connection with Nefarious, but with no success. The supervillain almost pulled the line holding Zack onto him, but the boy was able to release before he could. Then he spoke into a Bluetooth piece. Guys, I can't get any connection with him. He doesn't seem to be a cryptid. Nefarious overheard him and lifted his hand at him. What was your first clue? Suddenly Zack and Zahn found themselves stuck in midair. Nefarious would have done more, but a pink blast hit his face. It did nothing but distracted him, causing him to lose his grip on Zack and his pet. Along with that, he let go of Sandra's husband. The woman ran to her husband's side and helped him get away while Nefarious turned to see who shot him. It turned out that the pink blast came from Gwen, but she wasn't alone. The other Saturdays stood close to her, ready to fight. Along with that was another squad of plumbers. A plumber saw the two Tennysons and quickly went to their aid. However, this caught Nefarious' attention as he held his hand at the two and brought them back to his side. "No Tennyson is leaving here," he shouted angrily. Gwen quickly held both her glowing pink hands and chanted something. Soon green vines shot out from the ground and wrapped the supervillain's body. His hands were held down by the vines, his legs were kept apart and his head was held from moving. The plumbers opened fire with everything they got with them. Their tanks and guns fired mercilessly at the villain. However, all their attempts were futile, as Nefarious sucked the life out of the vines and stretched his hand out at him. "Everyone get down!" Doc quickly shouted. Immediately everyone got down, just in time as the tanks were evaporated out of existence. The plumbers got right up and shot Nefarious in the eyes. While they did that, Doc helped his wife up as Zack landed on the ground with Zon. "Wow, did you see that?" Zack asked in awe. Doc sent a scowl look that was enough to answer. Gwen got up and ran off to help her aunt and uncle. Zack tried to stop her, but Fisk, a humanoid-like creature with fur, stopped him. At the meantime, the plumber's attempts were foiled. It seems that as the shots got close to Nefarious's eyes, they would evaporate immediately. The villain just held his hand at them and caused their weapons to melt. His attention went back to Tennyson's and he saw Gwen join them. "Well, isn't this a blast from the past?" Nefarious smirked. "Gwen Tennyson, it's so nice you joined in the extermination of the Tennyson family. Now there's just one last Tennyson that should be here. But of course I don't plan on waiting." Just as the villain said that, he held his open hand at them and began to charge up for an ectoblast. However, suddenly Doc charged at him, along with his family. He let out a battle cry, as he charged his energy glove, and punched Nefarious hard in stomach. However, upon impact, the device shattered and sent a volt of electricity that caused him to scream in pain. Nefarious noticed the Saturday and sent a small kick that only knocked him a few feet away. Fisk caught him, but the force of the attack knocked him off too. His wife Drew Saturday stood with a glowing flaming sword. She directed the tip at Nefarious and shot a huge blast of fire that hit Nefarious right at the hand. Normally, an attack with such firepower would work. However, Drew's attack did nothing to Nefarious, who was just standing still like nothing happened. It didn't take long for him to do something was broke the very laws of reality. The supervillain grabbed the stream of fire coming from Drew's sword. Then he pulled on it, with Drew coming straight at him. Once the woman came, he flicked his huge finger at her and sent her breaking through a wooden fence and a few trash dumps, before finally tumbling on the ground unconscious. Suddenly, Zon flew at Nefarious with a loud screech. However, upon sighting her, Nefarious flipped his finger at the prehistoric bird and sent her flying away into the air. He felt something climb his shoulder and slapped it softly, which caused it to fall to the ground visible. It turned out to be Komodo genetically altered Komodo dragon who was invisible. The big lizard fell from his shoulder and hit the ground unconscious. The plumbers suddenly charged at Nefarious, even though their weapons were destroyed. Nefarious laughed at the attempt before he then let out a huge force of air from his mouth that threw them away and destroyed any house in its path. Fortunately no civilians were in, but the same couldn't be said about the plumbers. With all obstructions gone, Nefarious turned back to the Tennysons. His hand never moved when Nefarious easily fought off the Saturdays and plumbers. However, the supervillain found that they were gone. His senses picked up the sound of a vehicle moving, alerting him of where it came from. When he looked to the right, he saw Zack and the Tennysons driving off on the portable Saturday pickup truck. His lips shaped to a frown as he glared at them. "No one lives here alive," Nefarious muttered. Suddenly, Nefarious appeared right in front of them and stomps his foot on the truck's hood. It halted the vehicle immediately and trapped the people within Nefarious' grasp. The villain snarled at Zack and picked him up from the driver's seat. Gwen gasped, before she became angry as her eyes glowed pink. "Put him down, you creep," Gwen yelled angrily. Nefarious simply chuckled, before throwing Zack away to the skies. Everyone gasped as they watched Zack fly so high that he couldn't be seen. In fact, even his screams couldn't be heard anymore. Nefarious laughed hysterically at what he did. However, his moment was ruined as a green laser beam hit him at the chest. It didn't hurt the supervillain, but it did grab his attention to see who tried to harm Look. His lips formed to a grin as he recognized who it is. Max Tennyson. You finally made it to your family's demise. I was worried you wouldn't make it. Max growled angrily at the villain. He stood a few feet behind the truck, as he held a weapon similar to the one he used to blast Vilgax 3 years ago. Once the weapon was recharged, he pointed it at Nefarious and yelled, "Stay away from my family." Nefarious didn't bother to say anything. All he did was stretch his hand at the weapon and made it phase out of Max's grip, before he could fire. He then made it appear on his hand and displayed it in front of a shocked Max Tennyson. You see, Tennyson, your efforts to delay the inevitable is worthless. Nefarious said with no malice. Right in front of everyone, he destroyed the weapon in a blast of fire from his hand. The weapon burnt till it was nothing but burnt parts to everyone. Before Max could think, Nefarious lifted him off the ground by telepathic means and made him hover right in front of him. Dad! Ben's dad shouted in fear. As much as Max tried to struggle, he couldn't get out of Nefarious's grip. Even when Gwen shot mana blasts at the mega-powerful villain did nothing to him. There's no use fighting, Tennysons. Today is the day you all die. Nefarious shouted out loud with so much happiness. All the Tennyson felt their bodies get hot. Gwen had to stop as she felt her body's temperature increase. Nefarious had his right hand at them and watched as everyone cried out in pain. Truly, this might be the end. Suddenly, a green blast hit Nefarious on the chest. It didn't hurt him, but it did grab his attention to look up to the skies. A lone figure flew right above him, as another figure dropped off from it. The figure landed on the top of the Saturday truck, revealing himself to be Zack Saturday. The kid shot his claw at the supervillain's eye, causing him to lose focus on the Tennysons. Then the other figure came right at him and engulfed itself in a flash of green light. When the light died down, it slammed both its feet against Nefarious' face. Unfortunately, it wasn't strong enough to knock the villain away. However, since Nefarious was occupied, the Tennysons felt their temperature return back to normal. The telepathic grip on Max ceased and caused him to almost hit the ground, if not for the figure catching him on time when he first tried to knock Nefarious down. The moment the figure dropped Max on his feet, everyone looked at the figure and gasped. Even though his appearance was unfamiliar, the green hourglass symbol on his chest made it familiar. Nefarious glanced at the figure and was shocked to see who it is. No. It's impossible. Your Omnitrix was timed out. I set Fairy World to explode with you trapped on it. You're not supposed to be alive. The figure said nothing, but glared at Nefarious. Now that everyone has seen him, they could obviously state that it resembles a combination of a rooster and a hawk. Its features included sharp claws on his toes and talons on his hands, as well as 2 larger talons protruding from his arms. It also had a short beak and is covered in brown feathers, along has a white mohawk and belly. It wore a green mask, a green belt with a white stripe, and black jeans. Lastly, the thing that grabbed everyone's attention was that he wore a strap vest with the Omnitrix symbol on the vest HKR. The figure that saved everyone was none other than the presumed dead superhero, BEN10. Everyone except Zack were frozen in shock. Even though Max didn't know about Ben being presumed dead, he still felt shocked to see his grandson again. Besides, the moment wasn't really a time for family reunion. Suddenly, Nefarious charged at Ben with a pure hatred to finish the boy off once and for all. The look in his eyes were clear to back it up. Ben, look out! Grandpa Max shouted. Ben heard him, but did nothing. The Omnitrix engulfed him in a flash of green light, before he then slammed his hand down on the faceplate. His whole body changed drastically until the light died away. Everyone was left in awe as they saw an alien form they never knew Ben had. The boy they knew now stood as humanoid robot that's about 20 feet tall. He has a green and white body, large cylinders on his arms, near his wrists, which are full of a green energy with dark green bubble-like spheres. Also he has an omnitrix-shaped chest. His face has no mouth and his head is a pointed, armored helmet. Lastly, he wore the omnitrix symbol on his green and white belt. Atomics. Just as Ben cried out his form's name, Nefarious came at him and threw a punch. Ben moved to the side a bit and threw a powerful uppercut to his chin. The impact was so powerful that a burst of green energy shot out of Ben's fist and sent Nefarious flying up into the air. Ben looked back at his family and said, "Hold on. I'll be right back." Immediately, Ben flew off the ground to face Nefarious. The rest just stood there and watched as green energy and red clashed against each other. Zack broke the silence, as he turned to Gwen. "Wow, you certainly didn't tell me your cousin was that powerful." "Neither did I," Gwen replied in a mix of shock and sadness. Both Nefarious and Ben were locked in a furious battle in the skies. Just the normal punches caused impacts that blew through the air and made people hear them. Automix fought as much as he could, but even he could tell that Nefarious was more powerful. He had to move back from getting blasted by one of his beams, as the mad villain kept coming for him. The supervillain flew at Automix again and began throwing Ecto Ball at him. It took much of Atomix's powers to punch them away and also dodge them. The villain was still a distant away, but yet he always got an accurate shot at Ben. Simultaneously, Nefarious charged an Ecto Ball in both his mouth and opened hands. Then he formed another pair of hands and charged up Ecto Beams. It charged up quick, before Nefarious then unleashed a huge rays of Ecto Beams. Automix hovered in his place, but his hands were charged up with his nuclear energy. Once the beams came, he punched them in oblivion in seconds. Then he held both hands almost together and began to power up an energy ball. Immediately he stopped. He let out a huge nuclear energy ball at Nefarious. Its massive size almost came in contact with the supervillain, but it was easily destroyed by a single punch from Nefarious. However, Automix suddenly came at him and grabbed his face. Before he could do anything, the young hero let go and punched him directly in the face. Its impact sent Nefarious flying over Bellwood and crashing into the waters, which caused a huge tidal wave that almost hit Bellwood. However, even though the supervillain was down, Automix knew that Nefarious was certainly not out. That is why he flew over the water and prepared himself for the worst. It was easier said than done, though. Automix had used so much power that he began to feel so tired. If it weren't for his determination to take down Nefarious, he would have gone off to rest. Suddenly, a large water WHP came out of the water and almost grabbed Atomix's leg. The alien hero was quick to move out of the way, but another suddenly lashed onto his leg. It held Automix in place just long enough for more to grab his arms and legs, while at the same time holding them apart. The young hero struggled to get free, but it was futile. He was too tired to power up and blast his way out. To make it worse, Nefarious suddenly hovered to him with a dark aura on his body. The supervillain said nothing. He held his finger up, and made hundreds of water particles form into small arrows and had them hover by his sides. All of them were covered in same aura as Nefarious then flung his finger at Ben's direction. It caused all the water particles to fly right into Atomix's metal body and caused so much pain for the pain. The water particles pierced right through Atomix's armored body, causing him to scream so much in pain. It went on like that for the hero until he weakly bowed his head done. The damage to his body was so much that it even got through the huge-sized Omnitrix insignia on his chest. As Automix stayed that way, as a recent flashback came to mind. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 5. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and Man of Cartoons on fanfiction.net. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.